Many of you may know our mom and dad, Emily and Kellen Jacobs, and some of you may not.
My dad loves to serve others through physical therapy. My mom loved coaching here in Norton, was a teacher before we moved here almost 8 years ago, but now enjoys being home with us, and we love that too. Our mom and dad have been married 15 years. When they were dating, one night they were talking about kids, and both felt they were called to adopt someday. God placed the three of us in their world first. Then on April 9th, 2020, he completed our family through the adoption of Lila Faith Jacobs, which is the name her birth mom put on her birth certificate. I dare you not to cry. God has been good to us.
Thank you, kids. You did good. It's pretty embarrassing, isn't it? You guys got the easy part. Your mom and dad have the little bit harder part. Well, Emily and Kellen, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you guys be willing to say yes. Jennifer Henriksen saw you and asked you if you would speak, and you guys were willing. And I woke up at 12:30 this morning, and I was just thinking about how you guys are just such a great example of a godly marriage, and I think everybody will see that. No marriage is perfect. Everybody has many moments, but God is using you and has just done miraculous things already, and there's an even bigger picture that you're going to tell us about. So, Emily and Kellen, I just thank you so much and hope you feel comfortable. And why don't you tell us how you guys met?
I need Nate to come show me how to get on this again. I know the password, but it's not coming up. Oh, wait, maybe? No? Here, I'll pass it over here while we answer.
Okay.
Picture's up top anyway.
Well, I can talk a little bit while we figure that out. For starters, neither one of us wanted to meet the other one, so that's an interesting story. In college, mutual friend, I tell lots of people this story, had worked with Emily during some basketball tournaments during the summertime. I lived in a house with a bunch of track athletes at Kearney. She brings her over to the house and says, you can have Kellen or you can have John. So I didn't have to be the best person in Kearney, I just had to be better than John. And yeah, lucky for me, we both kind of gave in and met each other. And then that was it. We were off and running from that point.
Yep, I would agree with that. Basketball tournaments with a mutual friend, and we both put it off as long as we could, and then the summer was almost over, and I went to school in South Dakota, but I was home in Kearney for the summer, and gosh, we had probably a month left of our summer, and finally met. His grandfather was passing, and so he was home a lot, and I didn't really want to meet anybody prior to leaving to go 5 hours away, but thankfully we said yes, and there was that. Well, during one of those evening conversations before I went back to South Dakota, I can remember very vividly, he had a hammock in the backyard of the track house, and we were talking, as at least we did, dating. I don't know. I assume other people do this, but maybe it was just us. How many kids do you want to have eventually? Thank you. Where do you see yourself? Things like that. And I don't remember who said it first, but we both said, someday, perhaps I'd like to adopt. And I can remember both of us kind of looking at each other like, really? You too? And then we kind of put it away for a while. I'll let you take it.
Yeah, we, as things have it, just got busy with life. I got done with my undergrad and then got to the end of that and decided that I should probably do something with my life. So I decided to prolong getting a job off for another 3 years and go to PT school. And thankfully I got in. And then we decided towards the end of PT school that that was probably time to start having kids and kind of figuring out our plans for the future.
By the way, we were married. That
Yes.
happened
Yeah.
prior to the...
We did get married before PT school. I had to have somebody support me through PT school. Somebody had to pay the bills.
True story.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we started to have, or talked about having our family. Had a couple of struggles early on. We had lost a couple of pregnancies, and that was pretty crushing. So, at that point, we revisited the potential for adoption. We weren't going to give up on trying to have our own kids at that point yet, but the topic came up. Thankfully, we were able to have 3 of our own kids, the best kids ever. Mm-hmm. And then, you definitely get busy with life, and kind of really got pushed off. Couple job moves, couple town moves, just a couple of cats that didn't work out. Yeah. So, but then, yeah, we were on vacation in Colorado. It was over Thanksgiving time, and
Quentin was 2.
Yeah, we kind of talked about it after we had all eaten probably more than our fill, and somebody probably made a joke about having a food baby. Yeah. And I said, well, what if we do have another baby? And I think she was going to slap me or something, because that was not on the radar at all.
No, I was very sick after we had Quentin, and so I knew that I was not walking down the traditional path anymore. And Tia, our oldest, always is praying for another baby, still praying for another baby. I tell her to stop praying for another baby, but yet she continues. Good job, Tia, really. But I think her and Kellen entered a conversation about what if we aren't done? What if we're growing our family? And all the while, I can remember sitting there like, what? Like, no, we're done. And then I can remember Kellen saying, but are we? And I was like, hold up, let's talk about that later. Tuck the kids in. And then that evening, after the 3 kids were tucked in, he said, don't you remember that adoption was placed on our hearts? And it's now or never. We're, mid-30s at that point, old. And
yeah, getting older.
Yeah, and not getting any younger. So we do it then or we don't do it at all. And then he also informed me that he had actually already started researching the process. And then I knew he meant business, because typically if there was a move on something in our house, I was the one cattle prodding him along. But he said he had reached out, done some research, talked to an adoption attorney. I have a cousin that had adopted in Nebraska, and he had started really looking into this, so I knew he meant business. So without anybody knowing, I think I confided in a close friend that's now Lila's godmother. We started doing research on our own, and he had a course in Kansas City in January of 2019, correct? January of 2019. And so Kara Frack, our babysitter at that point, she had gone to Hayes. She was a freshman in college, and something had fallen through with our child care. But we had to be in Kansas City for a meeting with an adoption agency by a certain time. And then he would attend his class, and nobody else knew this was going on. So we couldn't tell somebody else, like, hey, can you come watch the kids? We're going to go meet with an adoption agency, because nobody knew. And so we dropped Quentin at age 2 off with some college guys, her boyfriend, and a house full of guys, and they made him mac and cheese, and they played trucks. And I look back at that day often and I think, my gosh, why did we do that? But in Hayes with a bunch of college boys, but he's still here, so it was okay. But
some of those Hayes College boys are all right.
Yeah, every now and then. So we continued the journey of meeting with agencies. You want to talk about meeting with Adoption Beyond? That was our first agency.
Yeah, that was our first agency, and we hadn't committed to anything yet. We just wanted to do more research. With a real-life person that does this all the time, not just an internet article that you might pull up. And so we had made a call to another agency, and they just weren't thinking that we were the right fit for what their needs were at the time. But we didn't give up. We didn't think that that was the right situation for us, so we reached out to another one, met with the person who ultimately became the social worker that worked with us through our whole time.
And typically, sorry, I'm going to butt in, but typically, Julie was her name. She only worked with birth moms. However, the lady that met with adoptive families was on maternity leave. So lo and behold, she also had to talk with us. And through our talk with her, we found out that she was a birth mom herself. She had birthed 7 kids with her husband that they raised, and then she placed baby number 8 in adoption. And I remember being blown away by that and her story, and telling her that we both felt this was a God thing and a faith thing, and she looked at us and she's like, and that's what adoption is, and was very bold and vivid. But she wasn't even supposed to meet with us. It just happened to be that day she met with us, and then still walks beside us, and we still are in contact with her. So if she wouldn't have been in there that day, so you can look back as far as that. The other agency, another agency that we were supposed to meet with that day in Kansas City, didn't show up. They were gone. I don't know. We showed up at their place, and she called me, and I said, this is what we're looking for. And she goes, wait, you have biological children. Why would you think to adopt a newborn? You are stealing from someone who can't have baby, and really just blasted us. And I remember hanging up that call, and Kellen's like, what's wrong? She wasn't for us. But it helped us refocus and re-question our motives themselves to make sure we were in it for the right reason and purpose, and it was powerful at that point. So so they give you a binder. You want to explain that?
Yeah, if you ever want to have somebody crawl inside of your life, every corner and crevice, just sign up to be adoptive parents, because you can't have any skeletons in your closet. So there is a big, thick binder. You have to fill it out in its entirety. It asks you, imagine every question that you can possibly imagine, very difficult. Some questions are difficult to answer. You have to write basically kind of an autobiographical account of your life up to that point.
Yeah. Which
each of us
ended up being,
individually, they wanted
and then
it
about each other as well.
6 pages, and 26 pages later.
We went away for the weekend to
Yeah.
write it, and it took us a Friday through a Monday, and it was intense.
Yeah.
But at first, the binder we threw under the bed. We weren't going to address it, do much with it, because it was all very overwhelming. And they check every corner, which is a great thing because you need to be in it for real, but is really intimidating as an adoptive parent as well. So then we had put it off for 3 months, hadn't told anybody else. We're just trying to pray on it and figure out whether we were really going to do that or not. And we took the kids to Florida. And we said, okay, after the Florida trip, then we're either going to do this or it's going to be a good fire starter. And one morning, I asked if I could just go on a walk on the beach by myself. And I can vividly remember praying, okay, God, I'm so confused. The world is so loud. We have this huge binder. That seems like a lot. We already have 3 kids. That's also a lot. Why did you place this? What do we do? And I said, I just need a sign. And I'm a visual person. I need something tangible. And at that moment on my beach walk, all these perfect conch shells started just flowing up on the beach. And I was walking with a cup of coffee, and I tossed the coffee into the ocean, and I started filling this, and I filled my pockets. And if you've been to the beach before, you find pieces of shells. Very rarely do you find a shell, but a coffee cup full and pockets full. As you're praying, please give me a sign of what we need to do. And I got back to our condo, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if you're going to like to hear this or not, but I was praying for a sign, and this was what I took as a sign. So,
and then I prayed that our luggage could make it back because it was under 50 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, very true, very true. So we got home, and we were going to do this. We had decided, okay, we're going to attack this. And then the movie Unplanned came out by Abby Johnson. And I sent out a text. At that time, I was the Norton volleyball coach. And I sent out a text to my volleyball players and moms. And I said, I'm going to go see Unplanned. Nobody knew at that point we were talking adoption, but I knew I wanted to be more educated in the other side. And I went to the movie, and a handful of girls and their moms showed up. And I remember sitting by Mindy and Courtney Jones, and Mindy and I both had popcorn, and we took like 2 kernels and then slid it under our seats. And we're like, this isn't a popcorn movie. Like, it was gruesome and graphic and truthful. And it was, yet again, something else I needed to have as a kick in the pants. And I got home to Kellen and I said, okay, we said we're gonna do this. This movie was about abortion. And I said, there's a mom out there who's gonna choose adoption over abortion, and we have to be ready. And we dove in.
Yeah, we were probably 3/4 of the way through the binder,
Yep.
because it's a big, intense process, and that was just kind of the final push to get us,
Yep, we gotta do this.
get it completed.
Yep. So then in June, we had to tell our big kids, well, it didn't have to, we chose to,
Well,
but we had to.
at some point we had to, because we were going to have home visits, and, strange people were going to show up to the house. So, yeah, we had to.
And the next day they had to go to the doctor for a physical.
That's true.
Because,
All the kids
yeah.
have to have a physical.
Yep.
That's another
So not
piece that
only
we didn't
Kellen
know.
and I had to be in good physical shape, but our children had to go through a physical. So in order to explain to them why, as a healthy individual, they were headed to the doctor, we told them on this night that what we did was we put out 6 bowls on our bar, and we filled 5 of them with ice cream. And we left the 6th one empty. And we said, God has blessed us with a family of 5, but Dad and I have felt called to adoption. And Oakley prayed it was a puppy, but it wasn't a puppy. She quickly said, of a puppy? And we're like, still not. She prayed Quentin was a puppy. Didn't work. She now has a puppy. So we put them out and we said, but here's the deal. Our 5 bowls are full, and they're sweet, and they're amazing. But if God chooses to fill our 6th bowl, we'll know that it was meant to be. And if he leaves it open, it's also okay. But because, look, we're still going to enjoy our ice cream. We're going to enjoy life. So kind of putting it on this, like, it's not devastating if it doesn't happen, because we have 3 biological kids. The chances of us matching are very low. But also putting it out there and saying, but God's will be done. So we called it the 6 bowl prayer at our house, and we framed this picture that you see and put it on our mantle, and we called it the 6 bowl prayer. And that was June of 2019, where it really kicked off. We let family and friends know. Our parents had to write letters for us. We had to have friends write letters. Our work had to write letters. Like, it was crazy. It's crazy, but it's all great. And then September, our goal was by my birthday in September that our profile would be live on Adoption Beyond's webpage. And I remember I was coaching at the Quinter volleyball tournament. There's some volleyball girls here, and the profile had gone live the night prior. And I just felt beaming. I was beaming. It was awesome. It was cool. It was out there. It wasn't a secret anymore, and it was out there. And then September 30th, we got a call. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that was a whirlwind. It happened all way faster than what we had expected.
So this is 2 weeks after we went live.
Yeah, so we thought we were ready, but it was an interesting call, because our adoption agency was only covering the states of Kansas and Missouri, as a lot of the border organizations in the Kansas City area do. They cover both states, but this call was for a potential baby in Texas. Mm-hmm. And so that was an interesting kind of twist. We didn't think that we'd ever have to go that far, because when you do match with somebody, and if they choose you and then you get this baby to bring home, typically you have to stay in that state until the paperwork is all finalized and you're not taking a baby across state lines without all the authorities knowing, for good reason. Mm-hmm. And so that was just shocking as all can get out. But then they told us that the baby was due like in a week.
Next week.
So
October, or end of September.
Yeah. Get all your ducks in a row and be
yep.
in
Houston.
Houston?
Or was it Austin? I don't remember. Texas.
It's a long ways from here.
Yeah. It was in Texas.
Yeah.
And I remember getting the call and calling Kellen and saying, this is next week. Are we in? And he's like, we said yes. Yes means yes. It doesn't mean convenient. It means yes. I'm like, okay. So I traveled with the volleyball team that day. Quentin came with me, just pre-planned. And I told the volleyball team, as of next week, I'm gone. I'll be in Texas. I'm sorry. That means league. That might mean sub-state. But Kellen and I said yes, and yes means yes. And I love you all as athletes, but this is a life. However, there was a stipulation on this one that unfortunately the birth mom was not sure who the father was. And so if it was the baby of the man she was still with, they were going to keep the baby and raise it together. If it was the man that perhaps she wasn't with and committed to, then she's going to place it in adoption. But she wasn't going to give it any care until she found out the DNA. So she was going to birth it the next week. The DNA doesn't come back till 48 or 72 hours after, and she was just going to leave it in the nursery, and then she lived in a hotel, so she was going to take it to the hotel and only give it basic care. And that crushed us. So I called our social worker, Julie, from Adoption Beyond, and I'm like, listen, is there a way we can find out the DNA before baby's born? Baby deserves love the moment it enters this world, whether it's us or her. It doesn't even matter. The baby needs loved. And so that birth mom agreed to get a DNA test and pushed her C-section back 5 days maybe. And we covered the cost of that, and our adoption social worker was like, you realize, like, she won't pay you back if she keeps the baby, and we said, we don't care. The baby deserves love.
It was worth it to us to have the baby loved from whichever side loved that baby from its first breath. And so after like 24 weeks, you can have an in utero like paternity test, but it takes a while to go back because there's only one lab in the country that does that sort of thing,
In
and that's
Virginia.
in Philadelphia.
Oh, there you go, East
Yeah.
Coast.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Philadelphia.
Okay, deal.
And
Sounds
so
great.
then we're just on pins and
Yeah.
needles waiting for what seemed like forever.
Yeah.
And it came back that it was that couple's baby, and so they were going to choose to parent it, and we wish them the best of luck. We had a baby blanket made, which we still sent down there, and still think about and pray about that child and hope that it's
That
the best
birth mom's
situation.
name is Sarah.
Yeah.
It's going to be a Hispanic child, and we didn't care.
Yep.
We were thankful she chose life, and we were willing to say yes. But we just needed that baby love from the get-go. And actually, I was sewing this blanket when I got the call that said, and we were leaving that day. We were leaving at noon that day. I had told the volleyball team bye the night before in Hoxie. I was sewing this blanket when the DNA lab, they called us before they called Sarah because we paid for the test. And they said, it's a match. I'm like, what does that mean? Because in the adoption world, it's a match means we match. Well, it's a match meant it matched with the guy that she was with at that point. And so we were crushed. Really, we were crushed. We were vulnerable and honest and open, and we were crushed. And Kellen sent me some flowers, and on the day the baby was born via C-section, I took all the kids somewhere. I don't remember where, and we go to the Catholic church, and I just prayed and cried and prayed and cried and prayed and cried, and I had this picture on my phone because I sent it to our social worker, and I said, can you please send this to Sarah and just tell her I'm praying for her today, because she needed to be ready to be a mom that day, and that baby deserved love. And she sent a nice message back, and like Kellen said, we sent everything that way. It was crushing. It felt quite a bit like a miscarriage. I remember talking to my parents. They were out of town, and crying the next morning and just saying, like, it felt like a miscarriage all over. We loved that baby. We knew about her she was a little girl, 10 days, but we were head over heels, and it crushed us. But then I think we went from, okay, God, we're obedient, to, okay, God, now we're serious about this adoption thing. And it changed our tune a little bit.
Yeah, and then we didn't really have to wait all that long again. So, I think he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Because the timing is all just too coincidental, I guess.
Yeah, I was subbing December 5th in Mrs. Melvin's class, and I know the Melvins go here, and my adoption social worker's phone number came up on my phone again, and I remember looking at the para that was in the room, and I'm like, I gotta take this. And I walked out to the cafeteria, and Julie's like, hey, Emily, you matched again. And part of me was like, no, nope, not ready for that. And the other part was like, all right, let's do this. And it was I want to say it was a Thursday, and you and I were leaving again for Kansas City that weekend, and birth mom wants to meet you on Monday in Kansas City. Does it work? I'm like, Monday in Kansas City? We're going to be in Kansas City on Monday. Kellen has a class. It's like, you're kidding me. I'm like, no, we're going to be there. So we went home and told our kids, and there was a bit of emotion because they had already lived through a fail with us and didn't really show emotion at that point. But I believe it was Oakley came back in tears, and she's like, is this one going to fail again, Mom? Like, I can't do this again. And at that point, the emotion came out, and I thought, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? And we had to miss their Christmas concert. So Mindy came over and curled hair, and my parents came down, and Steve and Janet came as step-in for us, and just our family was surrounded, and they got through, and we met our birth mom. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, you may not know this about me, but I was never on any blind dates ever. This was the ultimate blind date because you don't go on many dates where you expect a baby as the outcome. So
Hopefully.
yeah, I did my course on Saturday and Sunday. We were going to come back on Monday, and so then we met at the Olive Garden with our social worker and our birth mom, Brittany, and we all sat down and all said how nervous we were to each other. Tried to eat a little bit of food, but weren't really hungry, and then just kind of tried to let the conversation flow.
And it flowed easily. We were made to know at this that she was all in for adoption, but that there was another party that was not maybe as favorable, but she was hoping that that would change due to lack of being around the last, I don't know, quite some time. And so we were made aware that there could be a risk right away. And again, yes meant yes. So, but probably the most interesting thing that we were made aware of that night is about the time that the Texas baby fell through, Brittany walked out of an abortion. And so when we were talking timelines, something that was so hard, she walked out of aborting our daughter. And so, of course, when the world felt like it was falling apart because of Sarah and her baby, really God was just putting it all together. Because if we would have matched and been taken with Sarah, our profile would have gone down. It wouldn't have been up. And Brittany had a friend that talked her out of that abortion and said, have you checked into adoption? And she got on Adoption Beyond's webpage, and she was scrolling through profiles, and she very vividly told us, she's like, God told me, pick this couple. This is your family. And
Yeah, she had called our adoption agency. She said, I'm pregnant. I know I'm gonna have the baby. I'm gonna place it for adoption, and I want Kellen and Emily to be the parents. And the adoption agency is like, okay, well, that's great, but that's not exactly how it works. You know, we're gonna need you to come in and do some paperwork and things like this and discuss some things. But her mind was made up from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so she hadn't been to the doctor yet. She was 24 weeks pregnant. She asked Kellen and I to accompany her to her first doctor's appointment. She assured us that she had taken care of the baby. It was her fourth child, all with the same father figure. And she didn't have the funds to get to the doctor. And so Kellen and I returned 2 days before Christmas with our kids. and took her to the doctor. And so here's our bowls of ice cream again. 6 bowls were full. When we got home from this meeting, we got Brittany and baby on our insurance, and we accompanied her to the doctor for the first time 2 days before Christmas, and saw a healthy, growing, perfect baby. Big enough to see the gender, but a little baby didn't want us to see the gender. So we thought we were gonna know. It didn't matter, but we thought we were gonna know. And our kids all met. She single parents, 3 girls. Courtney went with us because we had to have someone watch our kids at the hotel while we accompanied her to the doctor. And then we got home, and pictures like this were drawn in our house constantly, which was cool because the big kids instantly, there was no more talking them into it. And you'll notice the skin color and the hair, and it didn't matter. That baby was theirs and going to be loved. And then in January, we went back and we did find out the gender. And Brittany, our birth mom, allowed the big girls and my mom into that ultrasound to find out the gender along with myself. And that was pretty special. Just that she would open her story to all of us. We were all in. The night prior to her mom, Kellen wasn't able to turn around and go back with me that quickly. So my parents went with the kids and I, and her mom and my parents and all of our kids got together for pizza at the hotel and hung out. And then after the ultrasound, we sent Kellen this picture, and that's how we told him the gender of the baby. And we went through blanket making again. The kids, as soon as we found out it was a girl, we went to Hobby Lobby. And besides Quentin's huge lollipop that he talked his papa into getting him, they picked out fabric they wanted to sew. And then this is her Mimi, which actually she's snuggling with back there right now. But this holds a lot of importance because Brittany's favorite color was purple. Why all the purple, that's our birth mom, Brittany. Just always wanting to keep her alive in our picture. And then each of the kids, our big kids' favorite colors are somewhere in this blanket. So it just tied us all together, and it's the blanket that I took to the hospital to bring her home in. So then, in March, you want to talk about that? In March, I was supposed to go, I went to Kansas City a day early. I was going to take Brittany to the doctor, and I was supposed to go on a spa day with a friend in Kansas City with Shelly. And got there on a Sunday, just myself. We were going to go stay the night at the spa, and I was going to take Brittany to the doctor Tuesday. And she called me, and she's like, I don't feel good. I feel like I need to go to the emergency room. And this was either late February or early March, before COVID.
A little bit before COVID. They said they started to have some COVID in the Kansas City area because we had to wear masks the whole time.
Oh, yeah. And I took her to the emergency room, and they checked her out. She was dehydrated. She tested positive for influenza.
But she was going into preterm.
Yeah, when we got there was no progression, but they checked her one more time before I was going to take her home, and she had progressed and was in preterm labor. So they transported her and I via ambulance from Blue Springs, Missouri, to downtown KCK by ambulance, and I asked her, I said, do you want me to drive my own car? Do you want me to ride? And she wanted me to ride in the ambulance with her. And so Shelly, Herman, Donovan used to be, met me at the hospital because Kellen was still back here in Norton, and it's 9 o'clock at night. And so Shelly meets me, so I'm not alone. And it was crazy. Then Kellen drove through the night and got there, and we all stayed, and they got labor stopped. But we took this picture. When I was pregnant with our 3 older kids, Kellen and I always had maternity pictures taken, and we always made the heart with our hands on my tummy. Well, this is Brittany's hand and my hand making the heart, but then you'll notice Kellen's hand and Tia's and Quentin's and Oakley's hand holding that picture. And so it kind of tied the bond of all of us together. And we took that in the hospital. When she got out of the hospital, you stayed a few days, but once labor had stopped, you came back and worked, and I stayed the rest of the week. but I helped her parent her 3 girls, and I did hair that I'd never done before, and I learned.
We got a lot of hair at our house, but no hair like that.
Yeah, very true. Now we have a whole lot of hair at our house. But it was a trying time, but it was very bonding. It was very hard to be away from my family here, but I knew they were in good hands. And I stayed a bit, and I came home real tired. And I'd stay the night at Shelley's, and then I would drive 45 minutes from northwest Kansas to southeast Missouri, or, the Kansas City area, to take her girls to school, because she couldn't drive. She was on modified bed rest after that stay. And so then after March, this is all of our pictures then, like I was speaking, this was on our mantle. We just prayed over the baby and prayed over Brittany until March. In March 2020, COVID hit, and that turned everybody's world upside down. But when you're in the midst of an adoption and the baby's to be born in a month, that really turned our world upside down. We had a birth plan. Kellen was going to be in the hallway. Brittany, her mom, and I were going to be in delivery. Kellen and I were going to have our own room to room in with the baby once she was born. And COVID changed all that. Kellen was no longer going to be allowed at the hospital. Brittany could, go ahead.
Yeah, they were only allowing one support person in with a laboring mom.
And they had to show up and leave with her.
Yep, had to stay the whole time. And so the plan was for Brittany's mom and Emily to both be our support people. So we weren't exactly sure what she was going to pick. But she did end up picking Emily to be in there. So that was a huge blessing. Because then from day one, they could both be mom.
Yeah, and so I felt very honored that out of anybody she could have picked as her one support person, she chose me to be in delivery with her. So school was canceled at spring break that year, which meant then remote learning was going to be on us as well. And so we found an Airbnb house on a lake out on the Missouri side of Kansas City, because we had to be, because it was a Missouri delivery.
Yep, had to be within the state.
Yep.
So we chose a place by Excelsior Springs. Because at that time, like the Kansas City area was not the place you wanted to be for COVID reasons. Even we were kind of questioning if we would have had to quarantine when we came back, because the state at that time had, marked travel restriction areas. If you travel to these areas, you have to, quarantine for X amount of days when you come back from those locations. So we purposely stayed about an hour away. But we tried to find a place where we wouldn't just be staring at the same 4 walls, especially in some hotel rooms. So we picked a house that was kind of on a lake, and we could fish, we could go for walks, we could just be outside. We still did some schoolwork at that time, which was incredibly hard to do, because any day we could get the call, but we needed to be in the area, because with her previous deliveries, she would show up to the hospital and then like an hour later be delivered. So us driving from 6 hours away was not conducive to be there at the time of delivery. So we purposefully left a few days early, a week early, just to be somewhat nearby, so that when we did get the call, hopefully we could make it in time.
And we were just hoping for that. And so it was Holy Week. It was Easter week leading up to Easter, and it was Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Holy Thursday, however you refer to it. And she let me know that morning that she felt a little bit off. And we had really great communication with her, and she let us know she felt a little off. So as a family, we did our walk, we jogged, and I said, okay, I'm going to go jump in the shower just in case she calls. And as I was getting my shower items ready, she called, and she's like, we got to go. I'm like, okay, shower's going to have to wait. And I had never been on that side. I had been on the side, actually I hadn't, because I was always induced. So it was all new to us, actually.
All of our other babies were just planned. It was like checking in. You just check in, we're going to have a baby today. Okay, everything's great. This was way different.
Yeah, to say the least. So like you said, we were about 45 minutes away from her. So I grabbed my hospital bag and drove to Brittany's house. Her dad had come and gotten her girls. And she lived on the 3rd floor of a tiny apartment And I said, well, can I come up and carry your bags or something? She's like, no, I'm fine. And so she walked down, and she looked like she was fine, and I thought, okay, we're probably going to go and leave. It's fine. Like, this happens, whatever. But they wouldn't let me come back with her at that moment. And so I paced the halls outside of the labor and delivery area, just honest to God, wore a path because I was nervous and he was nervous and he...
Yeah, I was wearing a path in the house.
Yeah.
All the other babies that we've ever had, I've been right there. I've actually felt like, I had a little bit of a say-so in what was going on, that's always false, but at least I was there as a part of the decision-making process. This, I'm an hour away with somewhat spotty cell reception.
Yeah, very true, and 3 kids.
Yeah, so I was really helpless and very nervous.
Yeah, and then they motioned me in, and she was getting her epidural at that point, was already out of 6, and Lila, and so then they let me come back the time of masks. Everybody had to have them, blah, 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 still there. And I was thinking, I remember I was in texting communication with Joneses, my parents, Kellen, and I remember Kellen being like, we're taking bets on what time. And it was, we got in the room at 2:45, and Kellen's like, 7 o'clock. And I'm like, nope, not making it to 7 o'clock. He's like, seriously? And I'm like, no, really, seriously.
The last picture I got of them was like eating chips and salsa.
Yeah.
Like, they were having a good old time.
Yeah. And not even 3 hours after we checked in, Lila was born. Healthy, happy. During the time of COVID as well, they had one baby nurse, one mom nurse, and a doctor. So they looked at me and they're like, ready to hold a leg? I'm like, nope, yep. What? I'm usually the one that, and so I became part of not only her support staff, but an active member of labor. I cut the cord. Brittany asked me to cut the cord. And Brittany handed the baby straight to me. And the nurse helped me go skin to skin and tuck Lila down in my tank top so she could be skin to skin, just like you hear about being best for the baby. And so you'll have to tell them from your side, because I don't think you got the pictures right away.
Yeah, I didn't get hardly anything, and I'm just watching the seconds and minutes roll by, because I think the last text I had was like, okay, ready to push, and then it seemed like, hours roll by and no communication, and especially pictures didn't come through, like just words came through okay, but pictures didn't, so I could I'm just pacing the floor, something's not right, something's wrong. But then finally, I don't know exactly how it came through, but figured that she was born and everybody was okay.
Yep, and then we just, lived in the hospital as 2 moms loving our baby girl. Hardest part for me during that time was being away from Kellen and the kids. But when I look back at that, she chose to stay in the hospital an extra day so she could love on Lila that extra day. And that was powerful too, because just 2 moms taken care of, switching the night shift, feeding bottles, things like that. And then we got to take her home on April 11th, which was the Saturday before Easter. Kellen had driven the kids partway back, the big kids, partway back to meet my parents to come back to Norton, because with me and Lila coming from the hospital, that was recommended. There was COVID in the ward. They didn't know what it did to kids at that time. And so I probably was exposed to it. And so they suggested we get our kids out of the house we were headed to, due to them not knowing what it was. And so that was extremely hard on all of us. And I can remember Zoom calls and tears and it's okays, but nobody else could go and hug them because nobody knew what was going on. And I know Pears stopped by and Joneses FaceTimed in and people drove by and tried to give them their love, but it wasn't Mom and Dad on Easter. And it was hard. It was really hard. So this was the day we checked out of the hospital, and Brittany trusted her with us from that moment, and she sent her home with us, and this was her hair, all of her hair, And her onesie says, all of God's grace in this tiny face. And I think she's asleep with my dad right now, but that's what her shirt says tonight as well.
It's a big concern when you leave the hospital like that, especially because you get in two different vehicles and drive in opposite directions. So we wanted to for sure make sure that Brittany was going to be okay and supported. We knew that we were going to have some sleepless nights, but we were going to be okay. We've done it before. But just really concerned that she was going to be in the right hands. And she went home with the same social worker that had met with us from the get-go. We had to do a class at that same location, who they typically have a birth mother speak to kind of go through the whole process, to talk about, what happens on the day of delivery and things like that. Well, the birth mother that they had lined up that day had canceled, so our social worker, who is a birth mother, had to step in. So she's really been intertwined the whole way through.
The whole way. And then came the point where Kellen was finally going to meet his daughter. We had a million FaceTime calls, and it was Brittany and myself, and they make you carry a baby out in a carrier out of the OB ward, so that you're not like smuggling a baby out, and our nurse and our social worker, and the nurse stopped us right outside the door, and she goes, "Stop, get that baby out of the car seat. It's about to meet its dad. He's got to hold that right away. I can't have the car seat in the way." And I looked at him like, "But your policy, I don't care what my policy is." And she was very adamant. And then Brittany said, "And stop, let me get my camera out because you need to remember this moment." And she, as a birth mom who had just handed her baby to us, was thinking of us. And this is when Kellen met his daughter. And the photographer of this picture is our birth mom, because she knew that was going to be important to us. And so he met her, and we laughed, and we cried, and we hugged, and she felt so tiny. She was our tiniest baby. And then this was all of us before we left the hospital. The gal in green is Julie, who we keep bringing up, the social worker who's a birth mom herself. Next to her is Brittany, our birth mom, and then Kellen and myself. You want to talk about that at all? Sorry.
Yeah, it's interesting. The big downtown Kansas City hospital, and there was nobody in the building. It was completely empty. You had to get checked in, you had to get checked out. That's really before we knew anything of COVID, and so that was kind of eerie. I was sitting out there again for what seemed like forever, and it's because they were taking a million pictures, and if you know Emily, that's not surprising. Yeah.
I come by it honestly, Mom.
Yeah, and then that was difficult because then we went back to the lake house that we had rented, and then the kids weren't there, so then that was really hard because we came back there, and our family still wasn't whole yet.
Wasn't whole. And we took Lila the Monday after Easter to the pediatrician, 48-hour check or whatever, make sure she's gaining weight. And I remember a very bold conversation with that pediatrician, and I said, "Listen, our kids are in Kansas, and it's killing us all. Is COVID going to kill them, or is their mental health?" And she's like, "Their mental health. Get them here." And so I took that, and we ran with it, and I called my mom and dad, and I'm like, "Tomorrow, we got to have our family back together." They said the risk is low. Their mental health is going to hurt them before COVID hurts them. And so, you trust that, and they came, and gosh, it was amazing. Kellen went and met halfway or a part way. I don't know where you got him or dropped him. I never went, so I don't know where you went. But he was pulling in, and they were honking their horn, and you could hear the kids screaming through the windows, and they were so excited, and you can see on their faces, who gets to feed her first? But this was the first moment they laid eyes on her, and he captured it, and that picture hangs in our house, because if ever you wonder, like, oh, but they're not biological, that picture proves it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She doesn't look like them, and it doesn't matter. The love they had, the innocent child love. So then we lived at the lake house for, again, what seemed like forever. Another 10 days? I don't know how long it was, forever.
So, again, another COVID thing. Nobody knew any rules or how things were going at that time. So we had to wait to get clearance from the state of Missouri to come back to Kansas, even though we were just barely across the border. But they weren't holding court sessions at that time, especially in person, so we didn't know how long it was going to be. It didn't end up being as long as we were fearing. They said it could be a few days, it could be like 4 to 6 weeks. And so it ended up being just a few days, but we had to do court via Zoom call, but our internet was really spotty where we were. There was a thunderstorm.
Yep.
We held the phone barely out the cracked screen door, just enough so that we could hear and they could hear us, because that's how we could get reception.
As our birth mom relinquished her rights.
Yeah, but she did, and then we packed up and came back home.
We got the call that we could come across, and this is the last picture we took at the lake house. We still refer to it at the lake house. And we got home just in time to, I don't know if some of you remember when the teachers did that drive-by parade. That's the day we got back. And we got back, and honestly, out of the van and the truck, right when that was coming down our street.
And here comes the big parade of teachers. Yeah.
And I held it together emotionally until that moment, and then I was done. It was a mess, because we were home as a family and all their teachers and stuff. And then visits looked weird. Do you let people in? You want to show off your baby, but what do you do?
And we just come from, at that time,
Yeah.
the hot spot
Yep.
for this location, so we didn't want to expose anybody else either.
Yep. But this girl right here kept herself quarantined up so she could put her hands straight on her, and she hasn't taken them off since. Coco's played a important role in this whole thing. She's one of the only people who's met our birth mom. And I remember we started out distanced, and then I think Mindy had said something like, well, she's kept quarantined. And I said, well, it's more of a risk to her than to us then. Are you okay with it? And Courtney came over and swooped her up, and it was powerful. And then we also did visits like this. This is Kellen's parents meeting Lila for the first time. Driveway to the grass, not how anybody wanted it, but it was better than nothing. This is how my parents did it again, driveway, not how you wanted it, but at least they could meet her. And then this is a onesie that the adoption agency gave us on the front. It had our Adoption and Beyond logo, and on the back, I don't know if you can read it or not, but it says love from the start. And our agency gave us that at the hospital. And we lived life as though nothing was going to stop us. We did everything we would have done with our other newborns, and we had newborn pictures and sessions because she deserved that. We sent out birth announcements. Brittany had relinquished her rights, another party hadn't yet, but at this point we had no implication that it was going to be trouble, so kept going. These two were my sanity most days. Carter and Courtney would come over and wrestle the kids for just a second because that was a whole lot. You couldn't ask for much help. COVID, sleepless nights, all 4 kids home constantly, some school in there still. It was nuts. We had her baptized, and this was the most people had been around her. My mom made her baptismal dress out of scraps from Oakley's dress that she had kept. Thank you for being a hoarder in that moment. She had scraps to make her dress in less than a week because it was a very quick put together. And her godparents, Matt Kelch, who is all the kids' godfather, and then Shelly, who had walked hand in hand with us through it. But yeah, her beautiful little dress that was made in a moment, but for a very special occasion. So we lived summer under COVID regulations, very busy, very much chaos, but very good, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, especially adopting a newborn, they really want you to try to bond as much as possible. So some of the education and research that we had to do leading up to even going through this whole process was this baby only knows the sound of, one voice or 1 or 2 voices, smells, things like that you get internally from a mom to a baby, and then all of a sudden somebody completely different sound, different smell, different environment, different stress level, different everything that a baby can sense. And so it's a blessing and a curse. wish COVID never came, but at the same time, it did keep us kind of locked up and holed up a little bit, and got to let us really bond super well, all of us, because the kids were home as well.
Yep, kids were home. The pairs would stop by and grab the big kids some afternoons so her and I could sleep. But as for who touched Lila, it was very few, simply for bonding purposes, but then COVID as well. And we stretched out, and the big kids were to be in a wedding at the end of the summer. And it was important to us to not deprive them of that. And it was Lila was, 3 or 4 months old, and it was her first outing, really. But the kids were in Carafrac's wedding, and that was a blessing, too, because it was kind of our first, here we are, this is us, and it was cool. And then the fall started, and I was still volleyball coaching it, and the kids were remote learning, and Kellen was working full-time, and we don't do good asking for help anyways, but then there's COVID, so who can you ask for help? And those were very trying days. Very trying days. So there's the girls' back to school picture with masks on. But this is what our fall looked like with remote learning. Usually a laptop on, but Lila and Quentin were right in the mix of all their learning, which was cool. In that fall as well, we had one grandparent left, great-grandparent to the kids, and of course you couldn't get in nursing homes. And this picture is precious to us because Kellen's grandfather just passed away within the last month, but you can see his finger pointing through the glass. They met through a window, and Lila looking at him, and the bond they shared right there, even though there was a window there, it was still precious. So
That's our only grandparent to be able to meet all of the
Yeah.
grandkids, so that was special.
that was special. And remote learning went on, and our countdown at our house was, okay, when she's 6 months old, then it can be final. And Tia would ask, it's almost 6 months. It's almost 6 months. Can it be final yet? It's almost 6 months. And October was 6 months, and we took her to her 6-month checkup, and there she is, healthy and happy and beautiful, and in the midst of all the learning at our house. And we took her to her 6-month checkup on a Friday, and I was coaching at Scott City on Saturday, and our lawyer's phone number came up on my phone. And so we had made it to 6 months. We had celebrated it was 6 months. Here we go, we can finalize this. And the next day, his phone number came up, and I called Kellen. I'm like, you gotta call him, what's going on? And he assured us that it was probably gonna be okay. He wasn't real sure what was going on. He was digging into it. There was some meetings coming up. He was expecting the other party not to show, so we're gonna be okay. But here for 6 months, we had been so tense, we made it, and now the anxiety reached even higher. And I remember as a volleyball coach, we did well at Scott City, and after our last match, I had talked to the girls in the locker room and walked out of the locker room and just completely emotionally lost it. And Lacey Chestnut was beside me and wrapped me up because she knew throughout the day, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. And Courtney came out of the locker room, and I don't cry often, and here I am, I'm hysterical, and I can hardly get the words out, and that was hard. It was really hard. Here we thought we made it. We lived life, and we had to continue to live life because we had 3 other kids watching us.
And we did everything right.
And we did everything right. Yeah, we took all the legal advice. We could have, was it 90 days? We could have tried to finalize at 90 days, but our lawyer said, if you go to court at 90 days, sometimes a judge will say that wasn't long enough, and then it stirs the pot, and then you could have her swept away. So just wait the 6 months. It'll be okay. We'll get through this. So we lived through, we did life with her just like we would. It was living by faith, doing the next right thing constantly. When volleyball season ended, we met back up with Brittany, and Salina's about halfway. And this was the first time she had seen Lila since we left the hospital. And it was pretty special. Rented an Airbnb for her, and then us, and then Lila. Everybody left their kids at home. But it was pretty cool. You want to talk about
Yeah, just a special bond. It's so interesting because every time that we've gotten together with Brittany, Lila's usually pretty standoffish to strangers, and even some people she knows really well. You can ask Coach Jones that. But she doesn't just grasp onto people. But whenever we would get together with Brittany, it's like she knows. She has an extra special smile, a little extra gleam in her eye. She just knows. You can see it. You can sense it. And so it's always exciting and fun to get together. We don't have the same lifestyle necessarily, but we share that little girl, and you can always tell when we get together.
And we always leave feeling pretty full, too. So do our kids. So this was special. It was right before Thanksgiving. So we had to keep living. Somebody challenged me, well, I think you should tell your big kids what's going on. And my response to them was, I don't know how to emotionally take care of this for myself. There's no way I'm going to be able to help them through. And as a parent, I've got to help them. So they had no idea that it was going to have anything. Tia kept asking, now she's beyond 6 months, Mom. And we just kept saying, we don't understand. I don't know, something with the courts. We didn't even have a speeding ticket between us, but now, we just kind of joked. So we just lived holiday to holiday. Christmas was by far the hardest. I can remember getting her stocking embroidered and having the fear inside of me, like putting her name on there, and I'm hanging it on my mantle, but what if we get one Christmas? And Kellen kept saying, then one Christmas is going to be the best Christmas ever. Like, always taking me back. I would go, what if? And he'd say, but we've done this, and we've done the next right thing. You just got to keep doing the next right thing, Emily, and the next right thing is to celebrate Christmas like we would. It doesn't matter. So we did. We met Shelly and kids outside of Manhattan and celebrated Christmas. We celebrated Christmas with grandparents and at our house. And Lila got our first baby doll. And Miss Rosalie came over for Christmas. We went up to Nebraska to my parents. And everybody, if you look at those smiles, everybody celebrated Christmas just like you're supposed to celebrate Christmas. It didn't matter. And we tried to put it off, and we kept thinking there were deadlines put out there, and every time another deadline would approach.
With no other contact, it seemed like.
Yeah, with no other contact between.
Yeah. We just kept doing the next right thing, like we keep saying, because that's all we could do, and that's all we knew.
That's all we knew. And then there'd be a deadline come up, and all of a sudden, paperwork would show up that was missing. And there'd be another deadline come up, or a meeting, and all of a sudden it would be turned in. And then there was an agreement to have mediation, and 5 days before mediation, it fell through. And then our lawyer said, you're going to trial, and the judge gets to decide the fate of Lila. And that killed us. Again, we didn't even have a speeding ticket between us, and now we're going to go to trial and fight for our child when she's almost 1. That was a lot. But we just kept living.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Trial via Zoom as well.
Trial via
so
Zoom.
You can't even show up and fight for your own daughter the way you feel like you should or would in a normal situation.
So the big kids returned to school, and Tia had to do a how-to project, and her choice was to do a how-to do African-American hair, which I thought was pretty cool, and so did her teacher, because the girl's a basketball all-star, but she wanted to show her friends how to do her little sister's hair after missing half of the school year with them live, so that was cool. And then March 5th came, and this was our courtroom. Kara had sent flowers. I had a picture holding Lila. On the note card there was a Bible verse. I was supposed to testify, and that computer held our court session. We were nervous as all heck, but the kids didn't know. The girls went to school. Quinta went to Susie's, and Lila went to Steve and Janet's because I had to have her close. And we went to fight. Some of you came and prayed on our lawn over us while we were inside the window fighting for our daughter without words because we didn't get to talk. I was contacted by people in over 20 states that day that they were fighting for us at the gates of heaven, just praying for God's mercy that he see and reveal what was gonna, what was right for Lila, and that her mom chose us and chose life. And it was hard. That was a really hard day.
Yeah, that's what we armored up, but we armored up with the laptop and some notes. So it was hard because we didn't actually get to testify or say any words at all. We were just on camera. And our lawyers just repeated everything right that we had done up to that point. It seemed like things were going just fantastically.
Our birth mom testified on our behalf. She relived her whole story
Yep.
for the sake of Lila.
Which was painful for her, and we wanted to protect her as well. And so, yeah, we just thought it went great until the last 3 or 4 minutes, and then we just had a really sinking feeling in the pit of our stomach.
Yeah. The ad litem sided with the other side. The ad litem was Lila's attorney, court appointed. And that was the last thing we heard. And our judge said, okay, I'll go deliberate. I don't remember what the technical term was, but take it under advisement. That's what it was. Take it under advisement. We'll touch base later. And the session ended. So the last thing we heard was the ad litem saying Lila should be removed from our home, siding with the other party who had been proven not fit. And all I could picture was our 3 big kids and having to explain this. I know how hard it was in a week when Sarah's baby disappeared and we never saw her, we never held her, we didn't spend a year with her. And all we could picture was that. And I remember driving, so court was supposed to be 2 or 3 hours and it was 6 hours. And that was the last thing we heard. And I called our attorney. I'm like, what just happened? Because he called us over the lunch break, and he's like, this is going great. Couldn't be better. I'm actually not going to have you testify because you're not going to say anything that we haven't already nailed home. We're just going to do closing arguments to try to push this through. He closed great. Our other attorney closed great. And then the last 2 was the opposing party and the ad litem. And the ad litem had nothing to keep her with us, and court closed, and so we hustled out of town before our girls got off the bus, and I don't remember who was going to take them. I don't know if Joneses had them, or I don't remember even where they went. Court took them, and...
They were in good hands.
What?
They were in good hands.
They were in good hands, yeah. And we loaded Lila up, and we headed to an Airbnb in Kearney, and I can remember sobbing all the way and saying, what just happened? And from the front seat, I heard, but even if she is taken away, she got life because she wasn't aborted. And we also gave her the best first year of her life, and that's formative. And me wanting to say, but that's not forever, but being reminded how fragile life is. And we tried to get away and have fun that weekend, the 2 of us, and Mom and Dad kept Lila in Kearney, but it was awful. And the world was really loud. Racial tension was at utmost high. I don't believe the political things were resolved yet. COVID was still hot, and it was just, the world was really, really loud. And we tried to get away and have fun, but I'm going to tell you, these are not genuine Kellen and Emily smiles. These are very worried people because we feel like we could lose her. And we don't know when the decision's coming, just sometime. So it could be any day, the call, the email. So we decide over spring break we're going to get away and go to Colorado. And a big snowstorm is predicted. So instead of canceling our plans to avoid the snowstorm, we just left early so we could get snowed in.
Yeah, they're supposed to expect like 48 inches of snow. And we never get 48 inches of snow. So yeah, we leave early so that we can almost purposefully get snowed in.
Yeah.
And be forced not to have any other cares or worries in the world.
Contact with anyone.
Absolutely. Even if the TV went out, we had board games and card games, we were still going to be great. So.
Yeah, and we just needed to get out. It was loud. It was really loud and very stressful because you don't know when you're going to get the call. And the kids also don't know. We just went through trial, so we're still holding that in. And here again, middle of March, the kids are playing in the snow, the girls were sledding down the driveway we were staying at, and I was just staring off into a field, praying again like I did at the beach, just like, God, I need a sign that we're going to be okay. I need a sign that I'm not going to die, because right now I feel like I'm dying. I can't imagine how Mary felt watching Jesus die, because even feeling like your kid's going to be taken, like, the pain of that is almost more than I can still bear. I'm looking back. So I was almost pleading, and I can remember hearing T and Oakley, like, talking off on their sledding. They're like, what's Mom staring at? Like, she lost her mind. Because I was just staring, like, does she see something? Does she see a moose? Like, and I was just pleading with God, like, tell me we're going to be okay. Tell me I'm going to survive. And I heard a male voice very, very clearly, and it said, she's yours, be still. And I looked around, and I thought, okay. And I heard it again, male, she's yours, be still. And I hurried back to the cabin. I'm like, you're going to think I'm losing my mind. I heard a voice, and it said, she's yours, be still. And on, like, we always have music on, and the song Be Still came on. And I was like, what? And from that day until we got the verdict, I had peace. And the smiles that we were able to experience at Easter became real again because we had that assurance, not by the courts, but by the heavens, I guess. And in this time, we celebrated Lila's first birthday, and we got together with her birth mom to celebrate. And that was a promise we had made to her, that we would celebrate her first birthday together. And so we met in Salina again, and we did. And at this point, nobody knows where Lila's going to end up. We still don't have the verdict. We pray it's us, but we don't know. And so we, just like Christmas, we celebrate her first birthday because at least we get one. And this is what our party looks like when we all show up together. These are Lila's biological sisters, Ava, Aria, and Aislinn, and then our three bigs, and then two mamas that love their babies. That's then a dad that's willingly taking the camera.
If you could say any gathering with like 7 crazy kids is peaceful, it was more peaceful than any other time, just because we kind of knew.
Mm-hmm. We knew. And I had told Brittany what I had heard, and Kellen was speaking earlier about the look that's in Lila's eye, and she just stares at Brittany. This is how she looks at her. Just, like, there's just this connection. Lila's only seen her 3 times since she was born, but she just knows. She knows her birth mom, for sure. And then we were getting ready to leave, and I said, because this is the first time Lila met her biological siblings, and I said, Brittany, don't you want a picture with all 4 of your girls? And she's like, will that hurt your heart? I'm like, no, these are your 4 girls. And so she took this picture with, those are all of her babies, which is cool. Then we came back and we celebrated her birthday with our family. This is her sign language thank you at the end of her party to her people that came. So we celebrated with Brittany on Lila's birthday, and the next day came home, celebrated Braxton's birthday. The next day celebrated Lila's birthday. Still not knowing from the courts what's going to happen, but knowing in our hearts we're going to be okay. And then on the 20th of April, it was after supper. So the chaos of after supper in a house of 4 kids, baths, homework.
Close to bedtime.
Close to bedtime.
Yeah. I think I had missed a call or 2, and I think you had missed a call.
A call, an email, and a text.
Yeah. And so then, I think we returned a phone call. And it was our attorney, and he said, hopefully you have a bottle of champagne because the verdict came in and you won your case.
Yeah, you won your case. And I had saved a onesie that we were given as a present when Lila joined our family that said answered prayers, and it was a size 3 to 6 months, and 6 months she was supposed to be finalized ours. So I tugged that thing on her, and I put it on her, and I made her wear it because she hadn't worn it yet, because I was waiting for the day that we knew that for sure she'd be ours. And so that was the night. Then we also informed the kids what had been going on, and I remember Tia and Oakley looking at us and saying, "This all went on, and you didn't tell us, but when you met with your lawyers, we'd put our ear up to the door and try to hear." And we said, well, that's why we'd send you to Steve and Janet's, so you couldn't hear. And that's why you went to Jones's. And we got to speak of our faith a bit to them. And how did you do it, Mom? And how did you do it, Dad, without, like, crashing. And we said, those days that maybe we were a bit more grumpy than we'd try to be, or it was harder to get out of bed, we did it anyways because we loved you guys and we had faith it was all going to be okay. So we wanted to finalize, which again would be via Zoom, at the same beach where the shells washed up. So after we knew we won the case and the finalization date was set, I booked our tickets and our hotel, and as soon as that was all final, we found out it was delayed, naturally, which had been with everything. But we said we're still gonna go because the opposing parties 30 days to contest it, is that the word? Was gonna run out while we were at the beach. And so I bought Lila a new shirt that said answered prayers that fit her. And this is the day that we knew that no more could stop us. Nothing more could stop us. We weren't final yet. We hadn't gone through trial, but nothing more could stop us on this day when we put her in that answered prayer shirt at the beach where we felt like the final call. You want to talk to me about that trip?
It was supposed to be really the finalization. Yeah. But we were pretty at peace at that point. We knew it wasn't going to be contested anymore. So we were able to really kind of kick back and enjoy the beach for all you can enjoy the beach. And knowing that the next court date that we were going to have was going to be almost a ceremonial type of a court date.
Yep. And we hired a photographer to take some pictures, and we informed her of why we were doing this, celebrating, why we were there celebrating. And it was a husband-wife combo, and they did awesome. And then we got back beginning of the week, and the end of the week, June 11th, this is how we finalized. We had people join us from Arizona, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri. Everybody was on this call. Courtney was taking pictures for us. This morning, I put her in the shirt she's wearing tonight, and I remember crying as I dressed her because it matched what she came home from the hospital in, but it was in her size as of now. And when she went home in her going home outfit, I made sure Brittany dressed her. And I was just praying for the day I would get to dress her for finalization, and it was finally here. So that was my bringing her home. And we had to get sworn in. Quentin also got sworn in, apparently. And Kellen was awesome. I have my grandma Marie's Bible, thanks to my dad, on display at our house, and he pulled that off, and that's what I swore in on, and Kellen swore in on my Bible, and we got to finalize it finally, what seemed like forever. And you see a lot of pictures from finalization in a courtroom. We didn't get that experience, but we got this one, and it was pretty awesome. My parents came down, and they Zoomed in from our back patio so we could have a moment as a family and experience that day.
Yeah, just really finally having the full sense of relief kind of wash over you was very nice. We really knew at that point, like, there was nothing else that could happen. So finally being able to really be at peace was nice.
We never thought we'd wait over a year to finalize something like that, but it was worth the wait, and it was hard, and it was faith-filled, and, we were encouraged through this journey, shouldn't you tell your kids so they know the faith story? And I thought, we talked about it, but no, when we were going through the muck, I didn't know how to get through it myself, and as a parent, we really try to parent our kids and help them through. And so the morning of finalization, I gave the big girls a ring that says Faith, and ironically, that's Lila's middle name as well. But Faith, I was hoping that we showed our kids through that journey. And I told them, I said, there's going to be trials in your life where you're going to wonder if you're going to see the next day. Because I'm like, I just did this. I didn't know if I was going to make tomorrow, but I want you to remember this, and that we got through it and had a nice talk just with my bigger girls, and the girls had a softball game the night of finalization, and we went out to supper to celebrate with my parents, and then we were driving up Main Street here in Norton, and Tia goes, "Hey Mom, I have a song you should listen to. I think you would like it." And it was the last song that was played, "A God Who Listens." And here my daughter, who I was hoping I was showing faith to, found her own song for the purpose of, she was praying to a God who listened. And she was able to say, "Mom, listen to this song. I think it fits in here tonight." And that was on finalization night, driving up after celebrating finalization. And as a parent, you kind of sigh a relief, like, okay, whew, they didn't think it was crazy, Mom. In that moment, they did walk away with something, and that's why we had that song played right before we went on. And just a few other afterward pictures. We got together with Brittany and the girls this summer, and we're just one big family when we get together. We celebrate birthdays and holidays. They just got a package today from us of Thanksgiving books and a Christmas countdown, and here's Brittany and her girls again. You'll notice that Aislinn and Lila are pretty close to the same size. Aislinn had just turned 1 when Brittany found out she was pregnant with Lila, and so they are very close in age. Actually, this is the two of them side by side, Lila and Aislinn, and they're pretty good buddies when they get together. Something that we didn't share earlier that I think is important was Lila Faith. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. We talked a little bit about how adoption is just a leap of faith for sure. That's why you've probably seen some of our pictures of our foundation, which we'll talk more about in a second. It's called Leap of Faith, but faith is spelled a little bit differently than you might see at other places. The E on the end of the name is very much purposeful. Brittany was kind of encouraged to seek the adoption route by a friend who also has faith as her name with the E at the end of it. And so that was her only request to us was, we could name Lila, which isn't always the case. The birth mom has every right to name the baby whatever they want. And then we might have to go through the process afterwards to change that name. But she allowed us to name her. Her only stipulation was that we would put an E at the end of the middle name of Faith in honor of her friend who kind of navigated those difficult decisions with her.
Yep, so that's kind of powerful. So yeah, that is us. What we're hoping to do with this, I never thought we'd sit up and talk about it and cry about it. But our goal was to not let it stop here. Our social worker that we've referenced, she's agreed to write a book with us. It's going to be a book that has the adoptive parent perspective and the birth parent perspective under one cover, because that's not out there right now. Our adoption agency has advised us to write a children's book about open adoption, because as of right now, there are not great resources for that. And then we don't plan to. We launched a foundation. And this was a pillow talk dream when Lila was between 3 and 4 months old. Kellen doesn't speak much, but when he speaks, you'll listen. And this evening, we were just chatting. Lila was tiny, probably sleeping on one of us. And he's like, "I think we should start a foundation." And I'm like, "I just want to figure out what's for supper tomorrow. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I'll listen." So we talked a bit about it. We didn't know what it would do, but talked a bit about it, and we both decided, well, maybe by our first birthday, we can do something like that. And so when the adoption was still contested at her first birthday, we had to push it off a little bit, make sure funds were going to be there, and that we were going to be able to speak on a successful adoption. And when it was, we pushed go, and we pushed go hard. And I think there's a video to show right
It's
now.
just bigger than
Yeah.
us. It's
Yeah.
bigger than us. We wanted it to be bigger than us. Our story is what it is. Everybody that's touched by adoption has their own pretty trying story, most likely. But our thought, our plan was it's expensive. Adoption is expensive, almost any route that you go. And so a lot of times that discourages a lot of what would be really great parents from kind of jumping into the pool. And so there's not as many people out there that would be financially able to do it, even though they might be willing to do it. So the purpose of our foundation is really encourage a lot of people who might be challenged financially, but would be great parents to go ahead and think about throwing their hat in the ring. Because the more that people can choose from, the more options that they can choose from, hopefully they do choose adoption over a different means. And so that was the brainstorm, and then it just kind of took off from there, and it happened really fast.
Yep. And our bullseye is, our goal is to make adoption easier than abortion. And so that is Leap of Faith. So if you want to play that.
Leap of Faith Foundation was really created to help us get a little more assistance for the entire adoption process. We really wanted to try to support both sides of the adoption process. Adoption's quite expensive, and so we wanted to really create a foundation in order to help both the birth parents and the adoptive parents, just to kind of ease that burden just a little bit. So we created this foundation to hopefully benefit both sides, and we also have an emphasis on mental health awareness so that hopefully the birth mom, after she makes the most difficult decision ever, is fully supported at least for a year, and then hopes that she continues on that path.
They tell you to budget $25,000 to $40,000 for adoption, but many times that blows out of the water quick. So hopefully to ease some of that and make the adoption the easier choice for both sides. Adoption is important to us because it was placed on our hearts as young kids before we had ever met each other. Then when Kellen and I were discussing, as you do in younger years of dating, dreaming family, things like that, we both realized that we had the adoption piece of ourself. And so after we had 3 of our own children, Kellen brought it up to me again, and we started the education process. Through the selfless decision of our birth mom, we completed our family through adoption, and we didn't want the adoption process to end with finalization. We wanted our journey to continue, and we were blessed to be able to adopt, and we want to bless others. Some might look at our Leap of Faith Foundation and see the capital E and think it's a typo, but it's very much purposeful. Adoption in itself is a leap of faith. However, the capital E is our connection between our birth mom and us. Our birth mom, after she made the decision to place our daughter with us, asked if she could place an E at the backside of Lila Faith's middle name. And that E then is the emphasis and the connection between her and us after a huge decision both of our families made.
One of our little sentences in our vision mission statement is to always leave things better than you found it. And that is true advice that we've probably had in our lives from an early age. So even if you're out walking on a hiking trail and you see a piece of trash, you want to pick it up and leave the area better than you found it. And so we want to try to really give that advice to our kids, not only in words, but also in actions. And there's no better people than Norton County Community Foundation to help us try to succeed with that dream and making it a reality. We trust the people here in CCF wholeheartedly. We consider them friends, but also partners in this whole process. And so when this dream, this idea of starting a foundation came up, it was a no-brainer to just run right down here and get it going. The process has been super easy, very helpful. We've been able to get everything done really quickly because of their help, and we're really excited to see what everything kind of comes to in the future.
We would love for others to donate to this passion of ours. If you know our family or if you don't know our family, perhaps a piece of this story can ring true with you, whether it's leaving humanity better than you found it, or if you know someone who's been adopted, or if you're a birth mom, or if you just want to support other people. The donations here, because we partnered with NCCF, we don't have any overhead costs, so the money that is starting this foundation up and the money that's donated is going to go directly to impact adoption, whether it be the adoptive side or the birth parent side. It goes into action right away. And so if a piece of this has touched your life like adoption touched ours, we'd be so blessed to have you donate.
One of the things that all the funds that this Leap of Faith Foundation is hopefully going to go towards is, like the video says, directly impacting those directly involved. What a lot of people don't know, and every adoption agency is a little bit different, but in that big binder that we talked about from the very beginning, filling out, there's a lot of cost that comes with it. So there's cost to the agency. There's cost that the adoptive parents typically cover the first 6 to 8 weeks of all the birth mother's expenses, because that is her maternity leave. Even though she doesn't have a baby that she's caring for at that time, she's still off work. So she still has bills to pay. So it's expensive, and then you add all those pieces together and it gets really expensive in a hurry. And so the whole goal with our foundation is to help alleviate a lot of those costs, with the premise that also knowing it's a very incredibly difficult decision, a selfless decision, and that needs to be supported. So hopefully tying the mental health piece to it that we think is important will really support the birth mom or birth parents in all that they need, but then also really hope to alleviate some of the extreme costs from the adoptive parents, who very likely, like our situation's a little bit different, but a lot of adoptive parents are unable to have kids of their own. So they've spent a lifetime's fortune going through, fertility treatments and things like that, lots of testing, a lot of counseling on their own to be ready to be adoptive parents. And so it's quite expensive on the beforehand and the afterhand. So hopefully this foundation will be able to raise a lot of funds to directly impact all those people involved.
Yep, and we plan to fund this through private donations, but we don't expect Norton to fund it. If you can pass our foundation around to families, our goal is to start in the Midwest states. We'll consider applications from 5 states to start with: Colorado, Missouri, Kansas, Iowa, and Nebraska, because we have ties there. But our ultimate goal is to make it nationwide and to make it last and to watch our kids become the board members. We have 5 board members right now. Kellen and I hold 2 seats. We've asked 3 other people. But we hope our kids are those board members and their kids, and it just keeps giving. And our goal would be nationwide. We also plan to fund it with those books that I mentioned. That's what the proceeds will go to from those books. And then we were fortunate enough to find a property. You kept hearing us say Colorado, Colorado, Colorado. We're not moving there, but we have a property there that we'd like to go to, and it's a vacation rental on days we're not there. And 10% of all rental, the Bible emphasizes the 10%. So 10% of all rental through when we rent it to others will go back to the foundation. So it will kind of keep self-sufficing, but like I said, we don't expect Norton County to fund this forever, but if you can help us pass it, that would mean so much.
Emily and Kellen, this is a beautiful story, and I know nothing in life is perfect, but as far as adoptions go, this is pretty close to being perfect. And Emily, I know one of the things that you did want to share was did this experience almost break you guys? I know not until the very end you talked about the roller coaster ride that this was for you. And you were so beautiful, Lila. How did you get through this? There were some dark times, really trying times for you.
I would agree with that completely. I think it would be untrue to say that for over a year you fear a child being taken away from you and you walk away without trauma or mental hurt, things like that. January of this year, I sought out mental health help for myself. I could feel myself, like I said, just closing in on myself. And my husband deserved a better version of me, and my kids did. And it wasn't an easy thing to admit I needed help, but I needed help. And I got it at the right time. And that's why mental health is a big aspect of our foundation, to get that help, to help me stand on my 2 feet so we could stand on our 4 feet, so we could take care of all the little feet, was really important. And then I don't know how people do adoption without faith. Don't know. I don't have a clue. Thankfully, Kellen and I like to think we're a great team. I feel like we're a great team, but teamwork between spouses. Days I was weak, he was strong. Days he was weak, I would try to be strong. Days my neighbors could see I was drowning, they brought pizza. There was some really important people in this town that really stepped in and filled those gaps. And without all those pieces of the puzzle, we wouldn't be right here.
Well, I commend you for going for some help because we discussed how in the mental health field they say everybody goes through situational depression at some point in their life. And it's kind of like breaking your arm. You go to the doctor. So people need to know that there's no shame in going to therapy and getting some help.
No, and I wanted to leave an example for my kids. They're going to go through a hard time. I wish I could tell them that they're not, because as a mom, I want to protect them from everything. But I felt it was important, and they knew I was going, and Courtney knew I was going, and she would ask me when she'd watch the kids so I could go, and she'd say, Coach, what'd you learn today? What can I glean from your session that can help me? Like, it was a no-shame topic at our house, and I don't want there to be shame associated with it. Boundaries are needed. Respect is needed. Empathy toward one another is needed. Health from up here just travels throughout. So
It's so awesome how you had that relationship with Brittany from the very beginning. That seems unheard of.
Yeah.
That's such a risk. There's so much risk involved in a roller coaster ride for both of you emotionally all the time, and your kids. And I just want to commend you guys for the faith that you have. I know your walk with God is so strong, and I'm sure you did a lot of Bible reading and praying.
there's a lot of scripture written around our house and still is,
Yeah.
but for sure.
The picture of you guys swearing in on your grandmother's Bible, that's generations and generations of faith that have been passed down from both sides of your family. Well, we will give you the opportunity to ask some questions. I know it's getting late at the end in a little bit, but right now we would like to have Bethany Shirk come up. And it's really so awesome how God has put all these pieces of the puzzle together this month. This month is National Adoption Month, and it was your dream. It sounds like God has really placed on your heart the Leap of Faith Foundation. So Bethany's here to tell us more. And all this has just happened.
Hi, everyone. Well, I have the privilege to be here for several reasons. I mean, first and foremost, as friends. I'm also with the Norton County Community Foundation that was in the video a little bit, and we're just really honored that the Jacobs are trusting us to help with their Leap of Faith Foundation. But primarily right now, I'm here on behalf of some very special donors from the Jacobs Well Foundation, who are making a really generous gift tonight to help launch and to celebrate the launch of Leap of Faith Foundation. And so on behalf of Jacobs Well Foundation, to Kellen and Emily and the whole family and everyone with Leap of Faith, I wanted to present this check for $3,000 to Leap of Faith Foundation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And that video and the website that comes with it and all of that is Bethany's work. So
Yes.
very much thank her and
Yeah,
Tara
very much.
down at the foundation.
You guys want to come up here? Do questions? Come up here. Okay. Okay, sounds great. Perfect. We're going to sing some songs.
Thank you guys so much.
Back up in a little bit. Go back to the seat for a second.
Garrett, would you want to come up?
Let's go in the front row. Here, Quinny.
We'll have you come back up in a minute. Go ahead and sit down, sorry.
Well, thank you guys. You never know anybody's story. Know you're around them a lot. I've gotten to know Kellen a lot because of my various injuries to my body. We get to meet once or twice a week right now. But what an incredible story, guys. Thanks for sharing. And, as I was sitting there listening to you guys' story, your journey in life is not always easy, especially when you have good intentions, right? But the cool thing is, as I've seen over time, as we've done these, my story, His glory is, and I'll keep this short tonight. I know we're getting late, but it's just seeing when people tell their story, just where God is in everything that they do, and how He was along with you guys for the whole journey. And I know it wasn't easy, but I think if you look back, you have so many things now that you've gone through that can help other people and have made you guys stronger and your faith stronger. And God doesn't leave you in the valleys. He's the same God of the mountain and the same of the valley. And it's just so neat to see how everything transpired. And you guys made an impact on lots of people along the way, right? You made an impact on the people in Texas, on Lila's biological mother, and your family, people in your community, people that have rallied around you to help you during this time. And that's really what it's all about, right? That the Christian journey is not easy. God said it wouldn't be. I will be with you, but also there's people. We're in community together, and it's so important that we do that. And for those of you that don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, or your faith is wavering, or you don't know where you're at on it, if you sit here tonight and say God doesn't have a part, or I don't know where God's at in things, I think that you can see that He's there. And when you're going through tough times, you're going through things in your family, or going through struggles that you don't know how you're going to handle them, God's there. And you can cry out to Him. And I think those are the points where we always really get answers, right? When we finally break down and say, God, I don't know what to do with this situation. I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know what to do with my faith. That He answers. And a lot of times in a big way. And sometimes it's not overnight, right? It takes a year, or it takes for a lifetime. But I do want to say that, I completely came in here with something, going to have something, say something else tonight, but I was inspired by your story. That, I come from a family, my dad was adopted, and I'm so glad that his mother chose life and that he was able to have great parents that adopted him, and it's such a big deal to have family and have parents in your life, and that, we have a pro-life stance, not from any sort of platform other than in the first book of the Bible in Genesis 1, it says that we're created in the image of God. And right there you already have worth because you are created in the image of God and in Jesus. And so every life, unborn or born, is important. And I just want to read, and I usually have a stand up here, so I'm totally out of my element with a handler, a cordless mic too. But I just want to go to one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, Romans 8, just talking about adoption. And if you haven't read it in the whole context, go read it. But I just want to read in verses 15 through 17. You did not receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear. Instead, you received the spirit of adoption, by whom we cry out, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself testifies together with our spirit that we are God's children, and if children, also heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ, if indeed we suffer with him, so that we may also be glorified with him. And I think that follows right along with that, guys. We're adopted as children into the family of God, and we're co-heirs with Jesus. If we accept Jesus as our Savior, we repent, okay? Go along that journey, and let me give you this just to end here as the ending of that chapter, because I've said this a lot of times in here, but I completely believe this, and I always feel like this comforts me whenever I wonder about things. At the end of Romans 8, it says, "No, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him who loves us. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things, nor powers, nor heights or depths, nor any other created things were able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus our Lord." We're adopted into the family when you accept Christ. You're adopted in his family, and nothing can ever separate you from his love. And as parents, we know that all too well, right? The thought of loss of a child is hard. But God is with us through that, and nothing can separate us from his love. So I just want to pray for you. And any of you, at this time we always have an altar call. If you have not made that decision to be a child of God, to be an heir, to have him walk alongside you and have that community with him, then I encourage you, either whether it's to come up front and pray with me or to talk to us later or have it on your heart, that I encourage you to do that. And I'll pray for you. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, holy is your name, Lord. We love you, Lord, and we give all honor and glory to you. As we see in the stories of your people that, Lord, sometimes things are really difficult, but you are a God that says, be still, I am your God. And Lord, we just ask if there's anybody here that needs to make a decision to let you into their life and to have you be king over them, and to help them along with their journey and to bring them into the kingdom. I pray that you work on their heart, Lord. And for all of us that, Lord, have accepted you, but sometimes we just feel like we need something. We need to hear you. Lord, I pray that we do go home and we just ask those questions, Lord, and we come to you and have that relationship. I thank you so much for the Jacobs family and for what they've been through in their story, that they're able to tell people, and the impact that they will make in the future for many families and many children. And I just pray blessings over them for that. Lord, I ask all these things in Jesus' holy name. Amen.